The window slammed shut. The dust has settled, and we've taken stock. This is Blue Monday, an Ipswich Town podcast. Evening, everybody. Hope you're all well. Hope you've gotten over Monday evening that Joe and I were here to help let you recover from, I suppose. This is the midweek news show, our new regular-ish news show that we're plopping into the schedules. My name's Craig Fimbo. Joining me as ever, Joe Fairs, coming to terms with our cathartic deadline day show. Joe, from Monday evening.
Yeah, no, it's been a strange one, hasn't it? Over the last couple of days, sort of while trying to take time to take stock of who's here, who's gone, and why they've gone. Were they the right players to go? Were they the only options to have? Have we had a good window? Have we had a bad window? And I'm sure we're not going to know the answer to that for probably a few months yet. But it's sort of looking strange. Like I say, we've all got I've got so much memorabilia around my house. Behind me, Morsey and McKenna's men picture there, and there's not many of McKenna's men left on it. And the picture on that side there of the formation, and it's all the old players in my boys' room. One side has got pictures on the walls of Connor Chaplin, Amari Hutchinson, Jeremy Sarmiento, Sam Morsey. His calendar on the other side is Nathan Broadhead and Amari Hutchinson. The shirt there hanging up is Luke Wolfenden. So, yeah, it's been a real big change in the guard for those guys that have given us so much over the last, 3-4 years. And it's just, they go with all our best wishes, but also it's a big... We sort of spoke about the transfer window during. It's been a high wire act with these attempts to sign like Hayden Hackney out of Middlesbrough. You're sort of going really high up there, trying to get them there. And if you don't get them, what happens if you don't get your targets over the line? Well, it feels like we did get a lot of our targets over the line. Yeah, we missed out on Hayden Hackney, but I think Marcelino Nunes is maybe not as good a replacement, but for half the price, he's not half the player, certainly not half the player on that side there. And I'm sure there was other like Mark Guiu we missed out on at the start of the window, but even he's been called back to Chelsea, and maybe that could have been a disaster had he come here, because we'd have been scrabbling around on deadline day without that 25 million that Sunderland had to go and buy Brian Broby out of Ajax. So we could have been in a dreadful situation with that. But it feels like we've got some really good players. It's now the hardest part, getting them to gel as a team, getting them to show the intangibles on and off the pitch that turn you from a team of good players to a great team and promotion winners, and getting those over the line. I think it's been the start of the season. We have shown that spirit. We have managed to come back with 2 late equalisers, sort of in periods of games where we've not played well, and we've managed to keep going and get something right at the end of games, which is a good thing. It's always good to be scoring late goals. It shows you've still got that belief in you, even when the game's going against you. So we've got that side of it there. But it's just learning how to win games of football again, because it hasn't been for a very long time.
No, and I think to your point, you're saying about the deals that we didn't get done, or the deals that we tried to get done and couldn't get done, they did happen at the beginning of the window, didn't they? Or certainly gave us enough time to pick up our second choice, whatever they may have been. You know, had we not been able to get our A plus choices, shall we say. I'm going to say some hellos to everyone. There's lots of people here. Thank you very much for joining us. What we'll probably do is we'll go through what little non-transfer news there's been really since the weekend, and we'll go through something that Joe has created. I'll let Joe explain it on a monthly basis. We've got a new feature that we will be pushing out to you guys to have a look at. Evening to Gary. Evening to Matt. Evening to Streaky, as ever. Evening, Neil, Charlie, Tim. Good evening to you, Colin, and a big good evening to Jason as well. Joe, I suppose the news that broke post-pod Monday within, was it 6 minutes, 7 minutes? You sent a WhatsApp message. We won't repeat what you'd said on the WhatsApp message, but the deals for Connor Chaplin and Luke Wolfenden were announced 9:05, whenever it was, just after we'd closed the show down then. And it was a day later, maybe, that the two arrival videos appeared from Coventry and then from Portsmouth. They were some interesting comments, certainly from Conor Chaplin, weren't there, on his Pompey interview. Very complimentary about Ipswich, very complimentary about the club, very complimentary about his teammates. He'd fallen in love with the football club. You can understand the trajectory his career had gone on since he joined us, how much of an improvement he's made himself as a player. And as I say, he was nothing but complimentary about us, was he?
No, and the town, the county, everything about the football club and the area. And I guess he didn't think he'd be ending up at Portsmouth so soon. But it sounds like there's been a lot of talk. He said it's not an overnight decision, it's something that's been going on a few weeks. And I think Marlon Pack tweeted that it was like a picture of him that had been on the phone to like Conor Chaplin for 42 minutes at midnight last night. Obviously, as the captain, doing his job of trying to get players here. But I say Marlon Pack was actually in the same hotel I was staying in at the end of the season. I saw him in there in the water park, so I should have said, "Look, keep your hands off Chappers." But he was in better shape than I was walking around the beach.
Were you in Puerto Banús or Dubai at the time, Joe?
Dubai at the time for that one. Yeah,
it was one or the other, wasn't it?
Yeah, so he was there, and I thought, but these it sounds like there's probably been a few potential deals in place that clubs have been talking to players. There was potentially a chance for Portsmouth to come in for him. There might have been something for Ben Johnson, even Harry Clark, because I kept hearing, Harry Clark might be on the way out, Then all of a sudden it was Harry Clark is definitely not going to be leaving before the end of the window. So maybe there was something trying to get lined up for him that just wasn't able to get done on that regard. And so that just pulled that one dead while the Chaplin Pompey interest remained live. And we know when you're pushing right up against the squad limit of 25 players, if you're trying to get a deal done, or we knew 4 players had to go out of the club on Monday. And it might be that Conor Chaplin may have gone to Portsmouth, Ben Johnson may have gone to them, Harry Clark may have gone to them, someone else may have gone there. And it might just be that the trigger had to be pulled on the one that was still available, still happening, the one where either the clubs above them got the targets or the clubs below them got their targets or didn't get their targets. It may be that we were trying to get 1 in, 2 in, and we had another deal lined up for somebody else to get out there. Who, I don't know, where, I don't know. But there seems to be so many moving parts in it. And it's just like, and you just don't know where the market's going to go. At the end of the season, people were saying, Will Asula could be a good one for Ipswich to buy. You could do a loan spell in the Championship, Newcastle signing for 10 million quid. And then Isaac stays there right until the very end of the window, goes for 125 million quid on the last day of the window. They signed Visser for 55 million quid. Then all of a sudden, Will Asula's going to a German team for 30 million quid. And it's like, that was one that we thought we probably had a chance at there. And that's how the market just moves and gets away from you so quickly. So I can't imagine how hard a month it's been, or hard a sort of close season it's been for Kieran McKenna, Mark Ashton, Luke Ware, and all those guys in there, the recruitment team. There's just so much work, so many plates spinning, so much to do. And so I was speaking to a couple of people in the game at other clubs, and they just said this window has just been the sort of like hardest window they've ever dealt with, because the window opened early. There's been so much in it, and it's just run, and it's just been like one guy's an agent. He just says every single day you're getting phone calls from players, clubs. They're moving there. Can I do this now? This is happening. Can I do that? Have you got anyone available for who's as good as Lionel Messi and is going to come and play here for 500 quid a week? And just constant. Because there's so many chances in the game. There's so many people trying things on that it means that everyone gets dragged into it. And it's just been a grueling few months. And now it's time to go with it. And you hear, say, with Kieran McKenna, it's like, I had a lot of conversations with the manager before I signed. And you just think, how much are these guys on the phone to these? How many guys are we talking to? How many targets are... How many different targets that we don't ever hear about? How much time is invested in Hayden Hackney and things like that? Because when you say never hear about a target, I think if you go through our signings, Azul Matasiwa, no one's heard of anything. L'Equipe says Matasiwa is signed for Ipswich. And then... within 24 hours he has. Yeah. Cedric Kipre, the same. That was absolutely nowhere. Darnell Furlong, it was nothing there. John Percy tweets he signed. By that day he signed. Marcelino Nunes, nothing. Nunez has agreed to deal with Ipswich, and then he's down here for a medical within an hour of that tweet coming out. So I'm sure there's others. Obviously, the Tuber Akpom was a longer one with the Birmingham interest, Ivan Azon and Jens Kayuste. They were sort of quite long-running sagas for all of them there. But I say when you look at the other signings, they were just done, gone, finished, job done, deal done, move on, next one.
Yeah. And
you wonder how many of those got to nearly that stage and then didn't happen. There must be huge amounts of time, effort put on. We can now put our feet up and relax for a week before we start thinking about the January transfer window.
Oh, to be a fly on the wall in and around the data dashboard, I think. I suppose from our perspective, though, it was good that we didn't have a hectic deadline day in terms of incomings. We'd done our business on the Friday rather than the Monday, because that would have been absolutely chaotic if that had been the case. We had got our ins completed, and then the only thing we had to concern ourselves about on the last day was trimming that squad and getting the numbers down. And to some people's point in the chat, we may not have got the value that some people expected we may have got for Wolfenden, for example. Charlie D here saying that it was seemed a bargain price. I suppose it was needs must to a certain extent. As we spoke about on Monday, clubs knew that we had to reduce our squad to a certain size, and maybe some of their targets, as you speak about our targets getting to a certain level and failing, they may well have had their own targets got to a certain level and failing, and all of a sudden they thought, well, Luke Wolfenden's available. We know that Ipswich have got to cull their squad by 4 or 5 players, so let's go and have a chat with Ipswich and find out if there's a deal there that can be done for them.
Yes, it's a game of chicken, isn't it, at the end of the day?
Yeah.
Where you sort of, how long can you go for? How long can you push it? Where sometimes, and I'm sure we've all been in the situation, whether you're trying to buy a house, trying to negotiate on a Tunisian market stall, or going out here on holiday, just all these things. At some point, you've got to know whether you can walk away or whether you can make the deal. And sometimes it just doesn't. You just take comfort in getting a deal done in your own time. Sometimes it's easier to think, actually, we are just going to pay that little bit more to get the deal done now, rather than drag it right through to the end of it. Like we've seen, I know probably the biggest example is Daniel Levy at Tottenham, where he might get really good prices for players, but he pushes them right to the end of the window, and it seems like the deals never get done at the right times for the clubs, and then you miss out on the target, or you hold on to players, and it makes it really, really difficult for the manager. Sometimes the powers that be at the football club have to just make the decisions that might not be the best financial decisions. They might be 80% as good as you want it to be, but you make it 100% at the right time rather than the other way around. So there's so many moving parts in there. But I think we can all look at the squad and say, on paper, we've got a very, very, very good Championship squad. We've got a squad that should be good enough for the top 2. I think if you were to put the ability of all the squads in the league out, I think us and Southampton are sort of quite a long way ahead of 3rd place. But that obviously football isn't played on paper, and now we've got to make sure that we are in that top 2, that where our squad says we should be.
Yeah, that's right. And I suppose from our perspective, we have an element of faith in the professionalism of our backroom staff and the office staff and the administration staff, etc., to get deals done, because you would like to think that your football club is run correctly and that things aren't going chaotically on the final day. But we've all seen Sunderland Till I Die, for example, and it's an absolute S show behind the scenes, quite remarkably, isn't it? In some clubs, and you can imagine that there were some people running around like their backsides were on fire on Monday, come 5 o'clock in the evening, 6 o'clock in the evening, trying to get deals done. And I say, thankfully, from our perspective, they were outs rather than ins that we were concerning ourselves about, because to Joe's point, we'd got our squad, what looks like on paper, very, very good squad sorted, albeit maybe a little bit lopsided in some areas, but the ins were done and dusted. And as per Phil's TWTD messages during the day, he was confirming that was the case, that they were done, and that it was just a case of sorting out the outs, shall we say. In terms of a bit more news, also we had Luke Wolfenden's slightly brief 1-word questionnaire video. I haven't seen anything else from him. He's obviously both players have put out Instagram posts thanking the club, the fans, etc., for their time, which you would expect, and they've got the requisite amount of response from Ipswich Town fans as well. One other player that went out on Monday was Finn Barbrook, who went on loan to Lincoln for the season, and he indeed played his first match last night, Joe, didn't he? Made his Lincoln debut in what we'll call the EFL Trophy, to save us having to worry about the sponsors at the time, in a good 3-0 victory against Notts County, and by all accounts he played 90 minutes, and by all accounts played pretty well.
Yeah, no, I had the game on in the second half. I was doing other bits at the time, so I wasn't really watching it fully, but he looks a really good physical presence in there, and it seems like having that pre-season at Ipswich, which I'm not saying he was lucky to have, but had we had midfielders signed early, he probably wouldn't have had as many opportunities as he had, but he's sort of taken that opportunity with both hands. Just looks really, really sort of big, strong in the middle. When you watch him, he's just scanning everywhere all the time, really well positioned. The ball seems to land at his feet very often, and it isn't by chance. It's because he's looking everywhere, getting in the right place. He had one really good snapshot that just went wide of the post, and yeah, hopefully he's going to get a lot of league football there. So that's just one of the sort of things you hope, because you don't. They go out on loan, and without the sort of recalls and the 2-club rules and bits like that, I assume he can now only play for them because he played for us in the EFL Cup. I think that counts. So yeah, it's just Lincoln for him for the season. So fingers crossed he has a really good spell there. Like I say, I've got every faith in him that he will do, because he's taken to senior football wherever he's been so far.
That's right. And speaking about Luke Wolfenden had his own loan spells, didn't he, and came back stronger for them. So you've got to hope that from a career perspective it does the same for Finn, who it'll be interesting to see, actually, because Lincoln do have a match at the weekend. They're not affected by international breaks. They're at home to Wigan on Saturday. So I think it's probably a 3:00 kickoff. So you might not be able to watch it on Sky, but he'll be playing. So you can, if any Town fans want to keep an eye on a Town player that's playing this weekend, Finn will be playing at Lincoln, and the guys who are down at Cheltenham may well be playing at Cheltenham. I didn't check if their match has been.
I think Matsionis is on international duty. Lithuania 21s.
Well, if you fancy watching a game, maybe you can pick up Lithuania under 21s match live on a stream somewhere. A question here from Charlie D. We did talk briefly about Luca Fletcher on Monday night's pod about being the only incoming player on transfer deadline day. Charlie asks if loaning an under 21 player is an unusual process, Joe.
Yes, I guess it is. Just purely playing under 21 teams. I don't know if he'll be able to be registered, because I think that you have to register any under 21 loanees. So he would be effectively a 26th person. So I don't think he'd be able to be registered to play in the first team, because even though he's underage, he'd have to be registered because of that. So yeah, I guess it's not usual, but it sounds like it's a loan with an obligation. So it's just a transfer, just for whatever reason, is going through probably in the next PSR year rather than this one. It's difficult to know exactly what is going on in those regards sometimes. But yeah, he's a young striker. He'd been at Reading Academy, was very highly rated there. Actually, one of my friends who I go to a lot of away games with actually taught him over in Reading. I think his sort of private school that he teaches at, a lot of the Reading Academy players go there, so he's taught a lot of their players. Okay. So he's just like that, and he said he helped them win the English Schools Football Association Cup 2 years in a row. And the year when he was an under 16, it was like he literally won it for them on his own, and has sent me a highlights video of that. So if anyone wants to see some highlights of the England Schools FA under 16 Cup final 2024, let me know, to see Luca Fletcher in action. Then he went to Man City, and I just don't think he just didn't start enough games in his second year there. But I say he's played England all through the age groups, under 16s, under 17s, and I think just a fresh start for him. And he'll be when you look at the sort of Tudor Mendels and Somto Bonifaces, these guys coming into our under 21s team are just big step ups from what we've been able to get by being a Category 2 academy for so long. So you might have the odd gem in there, but just their base level player is just so high. Like I don't remember the last time we've had an England youth international in the last few years, probably like Ben Knight or Dylan Crowe and things like that. And you go back a few years. So this guy's played England under 16s, under 17s, and still can't get even in the Man City team when he's at that level. If he was in our academy, he'd be playing sort of 2 years above himself, where they can't even play for their own age group.
You say about your friend teaching him at school. None of your friends taught Tudor Mendel child genius at Eton then, no?
Well, a guy in the year below me at school actually is a teacher at Eton, so it might be there. Maybe he did.
Yeah, I found that out. I know Phil at TWTD reported it almost a year ago to the day when Tudor Mendel signed from Anderlecht that he's a child genius and was...
He's actually at Oxford University, isn't he, doing a degree alongside his football?
He was on some real high-level scholarship to get into Eton, one of the top 12 brightest pupils in the UK, etc., etc. So he'll be taking on board. He won't be struggling with the tactics that are being relayed to him by John McGreal, I don't think, and Chris Casement in the under-21s. To Trevor's point here, he's a good player.
You say that though, he may seem to know more about philosophy than he does about pressing patterns. If you watch him play,
as long as you can relate it to something that Socrates once said, he'll be all over it, I'm sure. In terms of further news, then we've done just a bit of a sweep up of the transfer deadline day news, and Finn's move to Lincoln there. Henry Gray's been called up, Joe, to the full New Zealand squad ahead of a couple of games against Australia. What do you reckon they've called these couple of games against Australia, Joe?
I have seen what it's called, but I don't understand why, because it's not...
No. The Soccer Ashes, everyone.
Yeah. But I'm sure if they ever played England, they'd call it the Soccer Ashes or the Football Ashes as well, wouldn't they? So,
and what have they burnt? What have New Zealand and Australia between them? What have they burnt to signify the death of Australian football or New Zealand football to now play for the Soccer Ashes? Who knows? Anyway, Henry's over there for a match against Australia in Auckland on Friday and Canberra Friday, Auckland Tuesday, and we'll be going head-to-head with one Cameron Burgess, who is in the Australia squad for those 2 matches.
Yeah, it's really, really good for him to be called up. He's been around the squad before. I think sometimes they play games in Europe and have sort of these sort of like European camps, so they've gone there for those. And like Tommy Smith of Braintree will still be in the squad at New Zealand. So it is a real wide range. You've got Chris Wood, who's in like the PFA Premier League Team of the Year last year, and Tommy Smith, who's playing in the National League this year, still in the squad. Henry Gray's gone across there, and he's very much seen as one for the future for them. He is, I think there's an Under-20 World Cup that they've qualified for later this year. In Chile, November.
Later this month.
Oh, is it later this month? Yeah, it's the Under-17 World Cup that's in November. So, yeah, so he'll be going there sort of later this month for that World Cup. I wonder if that's when we talked about having him as a third choice goalkeeper, maybe that is why we weren't able to, because we'd have been losing him for a month in that regard. And maybe that's why he's not out on loan yet as well.
That's a very good point. Yeah, when I was reading the TWTD story about him earlier, that did say that the the Under-20 World Cup will be later this month. So that's something else for people to stick in the diary and maybe catch up, hopefully on a town player playing on the international stage. In terms of international football, we are now in the midst of the international break. Not a huge amount of disruption, Joe. Hopefully, probably our right-hand side will be most affected by it or suffer the most due to the lack of players. There are no longer 5 players with the Republic of Ireland squad now that Chio Ogbene's gone to Sheffield United, but the 4, Dar O'Shea, Jack Taylor, Sammy Smodics, Casey McAteer are all off with the Ireland squad. Sindre Volley Agele is with the Norwegian under-21s, as you said on Monday. So it's a bit of a shame that both of our prospective right wingers, assuming that Agele is going to fight McAteer for that spot, are both away and both being new players. George Hurst with Scotland. I don't know whether he'll start for Scotland, Joe. Would you think?
We started their last 2 games, but I think since like Kieran Bowie's in the squad, Lyndon Dykes, this is who he's up against really. So he's got every chance to start in those games. But yeah, hopefully he can keep his place inside. He started the last 2 and had a good game in one of them, then scored in the other one.
In terms of the international window, as Romeo says here, hopefully the break has come at a good time. There's time on the practice pitch at Playford Road, which should only be good for us. I say it's just a shame from our perspective that two of the new guys are off and two play in the same position, really.
Yeah, but you hope there'll be a behind closed doors friendly. You assume there will be a behind closed doors friendly, be like those. And even the guys who are away, I'm sure they've been giving some videos and bits to work through to understand their roles. And these guys are all uber professional now. They're not just going to be sitting there with their feet up when they go on international break. They want to come back and make a massive impact for Ipswich Town, and will be doing all they can to do that.
In terms of that, actually, what I'll do, Joe's going to introduce the new feature in a sec, just giving you an explanation of what it is happening. It's nothing particularly groundbreaking, but it's something new that we're doing. If anyone's got any questions that they'd like to ask, we may as well use this as a pseudo Q&A session while we're all here. I know there's already been some people put some questions in. Thank you very much to Trevor, for example, and to Mike. If you do put a question in, try and stick a Q at the front and I'll highlight it for later on. I've got some left over from Monday evening as well that came in late as we were closing the show down. So I'll ask those of Joe as well. Here's one from Charlie D before we do move on, because it's related to what we were just chatting about. I don't know if you know, Joe. I don't know if you're involved in any way, if the contract got as far as your desk. How the building work is coming along at Playford Road?
I can tell you it's coming along because, like I say, I live basically over the road from it, and there's a lot going on there. You sort of walk around, you can see where the new entrance is being formed, and you see a lot of the sort of civil engineering work has been done sort of below the ground on it. So yeah, it's ongoing. I can't tell you much more than that. I haven't got my drone out and flown over there or checked how they are with their project plans, but it's happening and it's busy and there's lots of people working on it. And
to Mike's point here, you haven't got any errant balls. I know you live quite close to the ground, but you haven't got any errant balls landing in your garden just yet. Now, the cow's arse and banjo proverb hasn't
that would
hit
have
your
to
back
be
garden.
very, very bad to hit my back garden from there. You can hear them, but not see them.
What Colin believes is there's a Millwall behind closed doors friendly tomorrow, he has heard. So
that makes a lot of sense to me, yeah.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense, Colin. So may will be the case. In terms of, as I say, Joe's going to go through a new feature that we've got. Before we do that, I'll just have a quick note in from Atwell's, and when we come back, we'll come straight into that.
Blue Monday is brought to you in partnership with Atwell Solicitors, your ideal legal partner for property and business law. Whether you're buying a home, starting a business, or just need legal guidance, our dedicated team has got you covered. Trust our award-winning customer service team to handle your legal matters with care and expertise. Find out more at atwells.com or visit us at our offices in Ipswich, Colchester, London, and our new location in Woodbridge.
Super stuff. Thank you, Mikey. Well, that's one thing for us. Here's something for you guys that are watching and or listening. As mentioned on Monday and as mentioned on the flagship, a 6K giveaway. Help us reach our 6,000th or become our 6,000th YouTube subscriber before the Friday night game against Sheffield United, and you may well win a new shirt. Only, Joe, the current first and second shirts, he says, not referring to social media posts that have came out today with potentially a third shirt on them. If you look at the various social media platforms, there will be the entrance details on there. You can enter on as many apps as you like. Basically, you like the posts and your name gets recorded and we pull them out of a Blue Monday bucket hat. Any thoughts on the proposed third shirt that may have made an appearance on a clothes rail in Thailand over the last 24 hours, Joe?
Yeah, like I say, I'm sure we'll see more of it, but it's the same frustration I have with the home and away kit, that sort of like the front panel of it looks nice and then the rest of it's just plain panelled shirts. We think like makes them look a bit cheap at times sometimes. We think if you're going to have a design, have it over the whole shirt and sort of really make it look something.
But obviously we're talking about a non-confirmed third shirt. If it was,
I like that they've done something different with the badge as well. If they have
allegedly,
done
possibly
different with the badge.
Once it gets confirmed, yes, absolutely. In terms of our new feature, Joe, before I get the graphics up to show what's happened as a result, do you just want to go through what it is that what we've done?
Yeah. So the Blue Monday team, as I'm sure you're aware, with all the top tier bits going on, the team has expanded over the last season. So I think there's about 14 of us, one way or another, either writing blogs, appearing on pods, doing top tier shows. So we have a sort of a new thing for any of those guys who have managed to watch the full game. Sometimes not everyone is able to, or can be bothered to rate it. But after the game, there's basically for any player who's played at least 20 minutes in the game, we're asking all the team to rate the players with them. And it's the scale we're using is a lot tougher than sort of a normal one where everyone gets a 6 or a 7. It's basically from 10 to 1, where 10 is perfect, 9 exceptional, 8 very good, 7 good, 6 sufficient, 5 average, 4 insufficient, 3 bad, 2 very bad, and 1 catastrophic. So there is a range of performances in there. We've had everything we've had a few 3s this year of bad performances. And sadly, we've only had a few 7s of just a standard good performance. So we are marking it harshly. It's sort of based on L'Equipe, the sort of French newspaper, which is sort of harshly rates people. To get a 10 there, you've got to be Richard Wright away at Blackburn in the FA Cup in 1995.
Steve Whitton, 1991 January, West Bromwich Albion. Yeah. We get the drill.
Those sort of games. So it's there, and we've been doing this for all 5 games. What we're doing now is just focusing on the league games. But yeah, so basically what it is we've rated all the players each month, and we will crown a player of the month. To be valid for it, you need to play in half the game. So the people that aren't valid for it is Jens Kuyus, only made 1 appearance long enough for it. Chuba Akpom, again, 1 appearance long enough to be rated, and Kyo Ogbene, 1 appearance long enough to be rated in the first game of the season. But yeah, so here we go. So we're going to go through the areas of the team. So I think the first one is goalkeepers and defenders here.
It is indeed. Here are your, unsurprisingly, not that highly rated goalkeepers and defenders currently, Joe.
Yeah, so if you look at it here, we've got Alex Palmer, Darragh O'Shea, Jacob Greaves, Leif Davis, Ben Johnson, and Ashley Young. Ashley Young is the only one whose rating is deemed sufficient. So basically a 6 out of 10. Sufficient on that. And then if you come down, next highest rated in there is Darragh O'Shea, who's at the high end of average. Just below him, Alex Palmer and Jacob Greaves. Slightly further down from there, Leif Davis, who's still ranked average. And then sort of the lowest rank in this defensive unit is Ben Johnson, who's been ranked as insufficient. So basically around a 4 out of 10 for his average performance this month. So that might give away who's had one of the 3 out of 10 ranked performances, which would have been Ben Johnson at Birmingham.
Yeah, and whether that does or doesn't tally up with your the guys and girls who are watching and or listening, do please let us know in the comments. I'll flash it up one more time. As Joe says, to Joe's point, these are intentionally harsh ratings, aren't they? If people have listened or watched any sort of European football pod or show, they very often refer to the L'Equipe ratings, don't they, Joe, as being infamously tricky and infamously difficult to get a higher rating, if you like. They're a bit opposite to those. If at work you do these Peakon surveys and are told by your bosses to please rate us 9 and 10, because anything under a 9 is considered an average. This is sort of the flip reverse of that.
Yeah.
Moving upwards through the pitch onto our centre midfielders and nominally number 10s. As Joe's point, Kuyuste is not yet involved in that. Akpom is not yet involved in that due to their lack of game time during the whole of August.
Yeah, so the highest ranked of the sort of midfielders and 10s, which for those listening is Azul Matasiwa, Jack Taylor, Sam Smodics and Connor Chaplin. So they're the guys rated here. So Azul Matasiwa is rated highest in this. I think he's sort of just pushing out of average to sufficient. He's nearly at sufficient. Jack Taylor, slightly below him. Sam Smodic, slightly below him. And a good chunk down is Connor Chaplin, who's sort of ranked similarly to Ben Johnson this year as an insufficient performer. And sort of it looks really bad now as he's just left and we've been waxing lyrical about how good he's been for us. And he has been, but this season I think he's not been very good when he's had the cameos. Sometimes he's coming on to difficult scenarios, but generally our attacking has been pretty weak. I think probably one of the positives we have about Azul Matasiwa is his ratings. If you actually sort of know what's in the background. Birmingham, he was 4 out of 10. Southampton, he was 5 out of 10. Preston, he was 6 out of 10. And then 7 out of 10 was the last game against Derby. So his rating has got better each game. So he's, I think, one of the only people who've got a sort of 7 out of 10 for a game this season. And that was for the game at the weekend. So, yeah, he's worked. That would be a good performance. So you sort of see how far he's got to go to get into all of his into the good range. But yeah, he's on his way up, which is what you want to see, because he had a really tough start.
Yeah, and exactly as you say, he has got noticeably and progressively better in each match and more comfortable in each match that he's played subsequent to what was a bit of a baptism of fire at that Friday night in Birmingham. Just to Sharon's point here, commenting that Chappers has just tweeted that he loves us all to bits. What a lovely man he is.
I assume he's not watching the show, is he?
We cannot alter. Maybe we'll give him a 10 for September because it's the 3rd of September and that's when he tweeted it. But unfortunately, we can't amend. And I gave him a 7 or an 8 for every match, but it must have been everyone else who was like rating really, really low, which brought his average down. That's all I can think that's happened. In terms of the strikers or the attackers and the wide attackers, the wide attackers and the strikers, this is what we have.
Yeah, and this is where you can see what the problem is. Casey McAteer is being average across his 2 games. And then next highest ranking is George Hurst, and that is insufficient. So that's sort of like below 4.5 out of 10 every game. Then below him is Jaden Philogene, and then below him, even further, is Jack Clark. So when you look at, if you were to have the whole squad up here, you've probably got Ashley Young sufficient just on his own. A few others, maybe the defensive block on the whole average, and then the attackers are just not being good enough. And I think it's difficult to argue with that, really. If you rank the players from top to bottom in the squad, Ashley Young comes out top. It's Darragh O'Shea and Azor Matasiwa in joint second. Wait, let me just get this up. If you can just talk, right?
Yeah. Just as a few comments coming in, actually saying that Romeo saying good job Moyes is not here because he'd have been in a very good column each week. Yeah, very possibly, or he'd do us over if we didn't put him there. Trevor advising that the ratings look average all round. Yes, sadly they do, and the performances have sort of backed that up, as have the results at the moment, unfortunately.
Yes. So if I just go through the squad from sort of top to bottom, highest ranked is Ashley Young. He's the inaugural Blue Monday Player of the Month. Like I say, this isn't a brilliant one to make, considering he started 1 game and come on a sub as a capo, and he's averaging, I think, basically 6 out of 10. So that is what our highest rating of the month is a 6 out of 10 average.
Champagne is still on ice in the Young household.
Below him, second, sort of joint second, is Darragh O'Shea and Azor Matasiwa. Sort of 4th, Jack Taylor. Joint 5th, Alex Palmer, Jacob Greaves, Sam Smodics. Then 8th, Leif Davis and Casey McAteer, joint 8th. 10th, George Hurst. 11th, 12th, 13th is Ben Johnson, Connor Chaplin, Jaden Philogene, and last is Jack Clark. So that is the rating. So when it's saying how is McAteer that high, he is ranked as our 9th best player out of 15 this month. So it's not that he's high. It's just that the rest of the other attacks are high. He's played 2 games. I thought he did well when he came on at Preston, looked lively there, and was a sort of slightly better
game.
I think he was better than Jaden Philogene and George Hurst against Derby, and so that's what he's up against. So and
he didn't play against Birmingham, so wasn't incorporated in that result and performance. So as a result, he maybe didn't get a 3 or a 4, where a lot of his current playing colleagues may have got 3s or 4s, for example.
And I think when you look at the squad and the sort of results as it is, I think we can see where the problems are. We're not scoring any goals in open play. We're creating a decent amount, but probably not enough for the amount of possession we're having. We're not hitting the target when we do create anything. So, as you'd expect, the defenders are ranking okay. They're doing an okay job, and the attackers are ranking poor. No one's ranking well. I say you're looking at there, like they are just no one is playing above expectation at the moment.
No, and that is that is the job, and that is the conundrum that Kieran McKenna has to now fix, because there's no more transfer windows for Mark Ashton to get his hands dirty within. It's now on to the currently being rebuilt Playford Road and the training ground, and hopefully those results and performances will come sooner rather than later, starting next Friday. But yeah, you would think that the pressure's on. To that point, actually, let me get up one of the last questions that just came in. One for you, Joe. Where would you put McKenna on the ranking of this season?
Well, I think he'd be definitely probably. He certainly wouldn't be in the top half of it. I think he'd probably be maybe in the middle at worst, because I think he's putting the right players on there, but you can't legislate for George Hurst not being able to trap a bag of cement on Saturday and everything breaking down when it gets to him, because we know he's not that player. He's a very good striker and will be a very good striker for us this season. But he's whatever we put out there as the attacking unit. Just there's been too many, as you see it on there. There's been too many poor performances. That attacking unit every week, there's 2 or 3 out of them who are getting 4 out of 10, and you just can't win games if that's what's happening. Because
no, that's right.
It breaks down there. So I certainly wouldn't say he's got everything right, but I think he's probably got more right than he's got wrong with the setup. But the players aren't performing as well. And do you then go and say, oh well, he's obviously not motivating them correctly, or this or that? So we'll never know where it lies. But yeah, I think you could probably find the average of the whole team out and assign that rating to Kieran McKenna, and that'd probably be fair. And realistically, that's probably going to be just shy of 5 out of 10.
Yeah, and I think, as you say, once the players cross that white line, their own individual performance is down to that own individual, and he can't legislate for, as you say, George Hurst having a couple of stinkers, as someone's pointed out, Neil's pointed out here in the chat, back to back, and potentially not having the most competition in the squad, maybe, with only Azon as his most direct replacement, shall we say. Although what we spoke about in League One and certainly in the Championship season, the underlying numbers and the underlying stats, they do pretty much back up what those ratings give us, don't they, Joe, in terms of we are having a decent amount of possession within opposition's halves, a decent amount of touches in opposition's box, albeit, as someone pointed out in Telegram a couple of days ago, the match situations may dictate that as well, in that we're behind in games and opposition may then sit back and allow us to have that increased possession and more touches in and around their box. But our attacking numbers, other than the maybe arguably the most 2 important ones, the shots on target and the goals, aren't too bad at the moment.
No, and like I say, we have been losing for big chunks of the game to Preston and Derby, so you would expect them to sit back, but we're still getting into good positions when they're sitting back. We're still getting the ball in the area and having touches in the box, but still not being able to find a target from there. So it's that frustration that you are. It's not that we're missing chances. We're getting to the stage where we should be creating a good chance, and it's falling down at that stage. We're just not making that final connection that we need to. And hopefully this stuff comes with time, with the squad getting to know each other, with a bit of confidence. I think the two big issues, because I think when you look at the guys who are playing behind the strikers in that free across there, you've got Casey McAteer now, Jack Clark, Jayden Philogene as the wide players, Sam Smolix and Chuba Akpom as the 10s. I think we haven't had enough from Akpom to do it, but McAteer he's not going to be a guy that's going to get you off your seat all the time, beating players, doing lots. He's hopefully your Wes Burns upgrade, dependable, holds his position, can work backwards and forwards, can get on the end of things, can get there and pull balls back and create goals that way, and just is your solid straight line running winger. It's on that left hand side where we've got Jayden Philogene and Jack Clark, and both of them have had to spend time on the right hand side at certain points of the season, which isn't their favoured position. But Jayden Philogene and Jack Clark have got to get into a position where Kieran McKenna's looking there thinking, which one of these two am I going to leave out, because they are both in such good form. Where at the moment it's which one of these two am I going to pick. Jack Clark scored sort of big ball penalty at the weekend, and hopefully that could be something that gives him lift off. So if Jaden Philogene plays the first 65 minutes and doesn't do a huge amount, and Jack Clark comes off the last 25 minutes and rips it up, then yeah, he's going to get that starting role. But we saw a lot of positives between Leif Davis and Jack Clark. Leif Davis and Jaden Philogene in pre-season at Aberdeen, they worked really well together there. I even thought, I know the game wasn't great as well, but Leif Davis and Jack Clark at Bromley had some really nice openings. They sort of one coming in one way, going out the other way. Yeah. Just for that 45-minute period there, they seem to have a good understanding. So I think that's what's going to dictate how good we are attacking this season, how good we are down that left-hand side, and how many chances we can get for Sam Smollett's Tuber Akpom, because they're going to be your goals, aren't they?
Yeah, I'm not totally sure. Having looked at the Scottish Premier League table recently, I'm not totally sure we should put too much stall into how we did against Aberdeen, because they are currently stinking the place out.
Oh no, it wasn't like, oh, we beat them, so we should be good, but more just they opened
the patterns and the understanding.
Patterns,
yeah, absolutely. And obviously now that the players are aware that there's the carrot of the Blue Monday Player of the Month award there at the end of each month, then you can only assume that will be used as an incentive internally within the club.
Have we made a mistake by only just announcing this? Is this part of the reason for the poor August?
Yeah, maybe we should have preempted it, shouldn't we, during the summer, and then pin it to the changing room wall.
But after all that, congratulations to Ashley Young for having an average month and being better than all the other players by doing so.
Yes, exactly. Or congratulations to the players for being absolutely bloody awful, and therefore Ashley rising above the cream rose to the top.
If we're sitting here this time next month, Craig, and there is another guy with such a average month being your best player, then we are going to be not in a good place.
Yeah, we won't be joking about it as much. If next month there's as many people in the orange and dark orange as there currently are on the screen at the moment, and not quite so many, well, let's not talk about the colours towards the front end of the ratings, but let's hope that they move towards the right of your screen, shall we say, rather than staying there.
In the Derby game, sort of Matasiwa and Kajust were actually both ranked highly in that one, and I think that midfield looked really, really good, really promising, and we've got Nunes to go into there as well. So I think if we can win the midfield battles in our games this season, like we did there, then we're going to be in a really good place. As long as we don't let in every shot we concede and decide to attack at the speed of sort of like Darren Curry, we will be okay.
Yeah. The few people have pointed out the speed of our attacks may be something to do with our slightly unsteady start so far this season. Neil's pointed out here that he's had one person that he would like to point out as being the outstanding player so far is Azor Matasiwa. I think, after, as you said earlier, Neil, after that slightly unsteady start at Birmingham for understandable reasons, he has certainly improved and got a lot better and is starting to look like what he did do towards the end of pre-season.
If you took out the Birmingham game, he would have actually won, because the tiebreaker is minutes played. So if you took out the Birmingham game, he would have been our player of the month. I know it's sort of, again, we're talking about that's not a brilliant high bar to clear, but yeah, he would have been it without the Birmingham game there. So he is definitely adapting quickly to English football.
In terms of questions, we've had lots and lots of questions coming. Thank you very, very much to everyone. We do have some, as I said at the beginning, we did have some left over from Monday night. So please indulge me. I shall just ask a few of those on these people's behalf, just in case they're not around this evening. Phil asked if McKenna would change the formation, Joe, from 4-2-3-1 with these new attacking players.
I think there is more potential for it now than there has been at any point, with the way we've sort of trimmed how many players we've got in those attacking roles. At the moment, we've got 6 for the 3 guys behind the strikers. You got Philogene and Clark on the left, McAteer and Valagele on the right, and Smollett's and Akpom in the middle. So you've got 6 for 3 players there, and only 2 in front of them, Hurst and Son. You've got 8 for 4. There's been times where we've had 11 players cover those 4 roles, where we've got 8 for 4 there, and then we've now got 5 for 2 in the middle. So actually, we've got a little bit more depth in that middle there, whether that means Cameron Humphreys is playing more as a 10, Marcelino Nunes playing slightly higher up the pitch, so you get him on the pitch with Kajust and Matasiwa. So there is that option now. It where before, when you've got 11 players for 4 positions, you can't turn that 11 into 3. It just makes it just silly because it just doesn't work there. Where now we've got sort of 5 for 2 and 8 for 4. It could be 5 for 3 and 8 for 3, and it's not as bad if there's a couple of injuries in there. So yeah, that is potential there. Just having a slightly more withdrawn 10, whether Nunes and Humphreys can be seen as the guy who can play the way Connor Chaplin played that role, maybe more, where they drop in and make things happen, as opposed to sort of how you expect Sam Smolletts and Chuba Akpom to play it, where they are just a second striker.
Yeah, dropping in link rather than run past George Hurst, for example, which is a question that Adrian asked on Monday, is if the style of football will change with the new players. It may well do, and we could well find out on Friday week. One question that Andy Bronson asked on Monday night was, how long does the club give Kieran if we don't start winning?
Well, I don't think he's under any pressure yet. I say that will change over time, but he's got a very, very long leash for me. I think he's been the sort of best thing to happen for this football club for a long, long time. And generally picking your managers hard. If you've got a good one, you want to give them you want to exhaust as long as possible with them before you even think about making a change.
There's a couple of questions here we've had this evening. Thank you to Romeo and thank you to Pete. Romeo's asked about the fact we've got 4 right backs, evidence that things didn't go to plan this window. And Pete's asking along similar lines, was the transfer window as scattergun as it came across from the League One and Championship seasons? The windows seemed far more measured.
Yeah, we shouldn't have 4 right backs. That's not what we'd have wanted. So yeah, that it hasn't gone as we wanted to there. But I think with Connor Townsend being injured, one of Ashley Young and Ben Johnson will back up Leif Davis as left back, and I don't think we'd have been able to sign a left back as good as what they are, even playing on the wrong side, to come in and say, come here and sit behind Leif Davis, who never ever misses a minute of football. I know we went off the last game, but come and sit behind a guy who plays 90 minutes week in, week out, who looks like he's not going to be fit, and then is fit every single time, it seems to be. So that side there. But as I mentioned on Friday, I think if you took out one right back and replaced him with either a Connor Chaplin in that 10 role, that type of 10, or a actual out and out 9 who is as good or better than George Hurst, I think the squad's in a fantastic position. So you're only talking one issue in it. I think really one too many fullbacks and one short in that 9 or 10 role.
And unless we're looking at every other 23 clubs podcasts are having the same sort of shows and same sort of conversations, you would think that they've probably got more issues with their relative squads than we've got with ours in the terms of the league structure, you'd have thought as well.
Yeah, and with regard to the scattergun comment, I think all windows probably are a little bit scattergun. We always sit at the end of a season and say, I reckon there'll be about 5 in, 5 out from here. And I always say, it's always going to be like 10 in, 10 out. That's just the way football has gone now and the way we seem to like to be. I think there's things out of our control which have hurt us. One being Axel Tuanzebe, that we wanted him to stay and we weren't able to keep him. And that's probably what has led to this issue that we've got a right back. Because if Axel Tuanzebe stays, you don't need to do anything else for that position. You don't need to sign Ashley Young. You then don't want to sign Darnell Furlong because you've got Harry Clark and Ben Johnson backing him up. And that leaves you in a really strong position there if Tuanzebe stays.
Or if Connor Townsend doesn't get injured, you've got the automatic cover over there.
Yeah, if Townsend doesn't get injured, then you can probably not make one of the 2 right-back signings. They're not needed there. Sam Morsley leaving obviously was a big thing, but not something we could really seemingly do a lot about on that side. So I think there's been issues that we've had that have sometimes been a little bit out of our control, but you just have to react to these things. But I think the window probably last season in the Premier League was more scattergun than this one, where you chase Jaden Philogene or window, don't get him, and then just sign Jack Clark and realise he doesn't really suit with the system that we've got in place and bits like that. And you end up having to buy so many players in one window that it doesn't work. And I think the only one where you say it wasn't scattergun, something to judge in hindsight, is that obviously that January window in League One where we signed Luongo, but we signed him and he wasn't expected to play and sort of sat on the bench for over a month, and then all of a sudden comes in and is fantastic. And when we signed Broadhead, Hurst and Harry Clark, and they all just improved us straight away, those 3. And then, but if you think the January transfer window of the promotion season, George Hurst was injured on Boxing Day. Dane Scarlett we let go back even before his loan was up because he just wasn't either up to what we wanted. When we then went into a game on sort of like New Year's Eve with no striker in the squad. I think Freddie Ladapo played. We then let Freddie Ladapo go right at the start of the window. And we had Caden Jackson as our lone striker.
Muddled through for January.
For the whole month. And then on the last day of the window, we signed Kiefer Moore and Ali El-Hamadi. So we just had, that was a muddle, but we had to make the early decisions to get where we wanted to at the end of the month. And I think we've got to where we wanted to. It's just now the hard work starts now.
Yeah, that's right. It's how quickly these good players can click. To that point, Mike asks if losing Lee Grant has made any difference to the staff, given he was the forwards coach.
Well, I don't think it helps losing any member of the backroom staff, but it sounds as though Shawnee Aluko has stepped up into Lee Grant's role, and we signed junior Stanislas from Bournemouth, who's come across to take sort of Shawnee Aluko's role as the younger one there. But Lee Grant was obviously a very driven, very good coach. He started excellently at Huddersfield, but he was never going to be here for a long time. He was here to, as I think, as he said, complete his PhD to then go into management. He'd done all his degree and his masters, and now this was the PhD. Yeah. And he wasn't going to hang around being a coach in Kieran McKenna's squad. He had his own ambitions, and we've helped him realise that. And that's part of what being a good football club is as well. Your coaching staff, your analyst staff going on to better jobs elsewhere, bringing other people in. It's not just your players you want to get fixed up with good contracts and good clubs elsewhere. And I say we've done a really good job on that. And you want it to be a great culture, a good place of learning. But it's so important that the results on the pitch go in the right direction, because then everything else follows from there. Really.
That's right. It needs to be seamless on the pitch, regardless of what's happening off the pitch. But to your point, the people that are leaving us are going to, certainly backroom staff are going to bigger clubs, or backroom staff are going to, in Lee Grant's place, going to their own job and being well looked after, well back there. It looks. Puzzle Oz asks, do you think the way Preston and Derby set up against us has shown other teams of a similar level how to beat us? Then that sort of probably refers to the speed of our player that other people have mentioned in the comments as well, maybe.
Well, I think everyone knows how to beat a good team, isn't it? You take your few chances, get yourself in a low block, slow the game down, try and stop them, and make a success. And it's up to us to find ways to counteract that. But we did it in League One, where teams just sat in a block, didn't let us move, and go from there. But yeah, we just need to start scoring goals, and we need to start attacking better. It's been in the comments. I've sort of read a few in there. Not attacking with enough pace, not with enough verve, not with enough crisp passing, not moving from there. So yeah, that's what's got to happen. You can't just. I mentioned it on the flagship on Sunday. We're playing sort of the high risk football you need to play in the defensive third, and then we get to the attacking. Then the attacking third, we're playing it really, really safe. We're doing what we need to do to progress the ball into that third. But then when we get there, we're taking those percentage options, and you can't keep doing that. You've got to make things happen.
That's right. Score early, sit back, stand past, central midfielder in the neck, and take it from there. Streaky asks if we're in danger of being overcoached. I think that was something that when things aren't going well for a Kieran McKenna team, that gets asked, doesn't it? Are we too formulaic in respect of that? But when it does click and when it does go well, it looks like a very very well coached team, doesn't it?
Yeah, you have the well coached part of it where you know where your patterns are, so you can get the ball moving. And we saw that a few times, breaking through the middle. But it's the players knowing what they're supposed to do, but also having the freedom to do if something else is there. So when Kajus sees the ball rolling to him and he sees Chaplin the other side of him and he can just flick a back heel to him, that's not overcoaching. That's if you see a vertical ball that you can play, you play it. Or if you see that you can break a line, you break the line. So I don't think we're overcoaching in that regard, but the overcoaching or the strong level of coaching should allow you just your basic structures to play in to keep things moving.
I suppose the slight fear is that the last time we were in the Championship, one of those players who did do the occasional off-the-cuff thing has just moved to the South Coast and Portsmouth, hasn't he?
Yeah, and he is someone that did drive us on, hasn't he?
Yeah. Stephen says here that the prerequisite for any signing should be their sprint times. Our lot seem pretty slow. I think we sort of mentioned it on Monday, Joe, didn't we? That looks like something that we have tried to fix and resolve in this window. Is that the players who are coming in, the replacements of the players, they do seem to be quicker and a bit more maybe physically capable.
Yeah, I think if you look through the team from front to back, it's a really strong physical team now. Like, I know sort of Luke Wolfen and Cameron Burgess were fantastic for us, but as specimens, if you compare them to Darragh O'Shea and Jacob Greaves, there's no competition about pace, strength, getting about the pitch with those two, just that pure mobility. Like I say, that's not me saying they're better players or a better partnership, but we have upgraded the physicality there. Leif Davis at left back is a real athlete. Darnell Furlong is an athlete at right back. In midfield, you've upgraded there with Matasiwa, Kajust, who was a Premier League quality athlete on the pitch. Nunes is like one of the hardest running. I know he's Chilean, he's good on the ball, he does this, but he's a real hard running sort of dog of a player in the midfield. The way he gets about there with him and Matasiwa in there, if you play those two, the opposition aren't going to get a moment's rest. And then sort of McAteer again, Ogbene obviously wasn't up to it physically. McAteer's a good physical player. Agele's strong, quick, direct. I'd say Philogene is quick, but he's not showing it all the time. Jack Clark isn't the best physically in that pace, but Hurst, Azon, two big bustling centre forwards in there. So yeah, we have got that physicality and that physicality mixed with pace, athleticism all through the team.
Yeah. Frenchie asked a question about the goalkeepers, asked whether we should have bought a new goalkeeper given Palmer's distribution and struggles on shot stopping. I suppose we may have talked about it at deadline, and I know it's been spoken about leading up to deadline. Probably just one more deal to do that we just didn't have time and the propensity to do. It may well have been a nice to have, but on the Moscow scale, one that was further down the list.
Yeah, I think
he's okay for the championship.
Yeah, he's plenty good enough for the championship. It was just too much work to do. And I think since that first game at Birmingham, I think his distribution has been noticeably better. He's been noticeably braver with his distribution since then.
But then also that may come around, not only is he more confident, the two guys that he's passing it to, Matasiwa was now more confident, having been coached for the last 2 or 3 weeks and got used to everything and got used to the speed of the championship, etc. So it's not necessarily just Palmer who's getting better. It's hopefully the whole team that's getting better as a result of the increased time and more exposure to Kieran McKenna on the training pitch. Pete's asked here about Agele, talks about the wide players really. Can Clark and Philogene be more direct? Because Agele's described himself as being a direct runner and direct winger. And we've spoken about this, and I know you guys spoke about it on the flagship about Philogene being relatively slow to calm the play down and not going at his winger, going at his fullback. And that's when you look at, or when people looked at his Philogene's highlights reel, when we bought him, his Hull highlights reel, all of his goals are him darting into the box, breaking into the box, scoring goals, not even thinking about left, right footed shots, goals. He's just a different player, isn't he, to the one that we're currently seeing?
Yeah, and one of my friends is an Aston Villa season ticket holder, and he said he just looked like he had the confidence knocked out of him at Villa. Every time he got the ball, he ended up coming back and going to square, playing behind him. And he's just got to believe in himself again, and we've got to get that belief into him.
Yeah. Right, we've gone past the hour mark. We're going to get told off. I'm going to ask a couple more questions up for Joe. We'll do some plugs, then we'll say good night. Thank you very much for joining us, everybody. Trevor asks, who's our first choice number 10, Akpom or Smodics, or Horses for Courses will be my addition?
Yeah, Horses for Courses. Basically, whoever's going to be the hot hand, who's going to take the opportunity. If Akpom comes on and gets a couple of goals off the bench, then he's going to get an opportunity from there.
One from Norman. Do any of our loans have a January recall? I think you've answered it there, Norman, in that it's Chappers, I think, is the only one that has.
I think this is incoming, isn't it? So I don't think.
Sorry.
Azon could just are here for the season. Akpom is here for the season. Who's the other one?
Do they have? Do they have any?
No, these are all ones who are like obligated. These are all ones we'll have for the year. All four.
Okay. And I can't, having listened to Chappers' introduction and his goodbyes messages and social media posts, you wouldn't think it's in the pipeline for him to come back. Although, as we found out and as we broke live on Monday evening, he does have the potential of an extra year on his contract. So who knows? In terms of plugs, let me do those before we say goodnight. Continues despite the international break. Friday morning, there's a pre-match ahead of the ITFC Women's WSL 2 season opener at Southampton. Rich is going to provide us with that. Friday afternoon, there's a new top tier show, The International Break, featuring Check's Notes. Oh, Joe Fairs, covering England's upcoming games against, I have absolutely no idea,
Andorra and Serbia.
Brilliant. Sunday, there will be a flagship with Ben, Dave, and Check's Notes. Joe Fairs will be back on Sunday evening for a roundup of the month, really, the roundup of the season so far. As I mentioned, Top Tier, I may as well mention it again, somewhere along here on YouTube. There's a button if you'd like to come and join us on Top Tier. There's a couple of extra shows, as mentioned, the Monday analytics show, the Friday pre-weekend match show. Might even be a rewind show early September as well to wet your whistle. Blue Monday, ITFC.co.uk. Please like and subscribe. Finally, Procrastinating Womble. How would you rate Blue Monday for this period? I will leave it at that's a completely rhetorical question. I don't want any comments. I don't want Joe to answer. We'll just leave it there. But if you don't mind it, give us a thumbs up. That would be absolutely brilliant. Joe, thank you for your evening. Would you like to just say goodbye?
Yep. See you all again soon, guys.
Wonderful stuff. As I say, Friday morning for the ladies intro, Friday afternoon for a top tier, but Sunday evening, 8 o'clock, back for the flagship. Thank you, everyone, for your comments. Thank you for your questions. We'll see you next time.